Good afternoon, everyone. Before we get into the briefing, I would like to take a second to wish the United Kingdom Prime Minister well as he returns to work today and as he wrestles with the challenges that await him. Today, the Minister for Health and Social Care and I are joined by Bob McColm, our prison governor and head of our probation services. First of all, I would like to ask the Health and Social Care Minister to take you through today's statistics. David.
Thank you, Chief Minister. The total number of tests undertaken stands at 2,903. The total tests that have been returned is 2,869, which means that leaves outstanding return 34 tests. There are no further new cases identified today, leaving the total case number at 308. Of those, 248 are now presumed recovered, and we have 40 there active cases. It is also with deepest sadness that I have to report 2 further deaths within our community. Once again, this dreadful virus has struck at the heart of our community. We have lost 2 further members, leaving behind friends and loved ones, and I offer my condolences to their family and friends.
Thank you, David. And on behalf of myself, the Isle of Man government and all my team, I'd like to pass on my condolences to the 2 people, to the families who have lost loved ones today. Now, while of course the situation at Abbotswood remains a heartbreaking tragedy, I am pleased that the wider figures remain low. However, as the Health and Social Care Minister has said on a number of occasions, we must look beyond daily numbers, however encouraging they may be, and see the longer-term trends. For the moment, these also give us cause for cautious optimism, but we cannot be complacent. I would like to start by thanking you, the public, for acting responsibly this weekend. I have heard from the Chief Constable that across the island people were respecting social distancing, the 40 miles per hour speed limit, and other important issues. Thank you all very much. I have received messages from sole traders and small businesses who have gone back to work as a result of the changes that we brought in on Friday. Some took the time to outline to me the changes that they have made to their working practices in order to keep safe. Again, thank you. I have also heard from DEFA that there have only been 18 calls and emails to the Health and Safety at Work team since our announcement last week, and these have almost all been seeking advice on how to return to work safely rather than raising any issues. At this stage, I would like to hand over to Bob McColm for an update from the Prison and Probation Services. Over to you, Bob.
Thank you, Chief Minister. Can I first of all put on a record my admiration and respect for the key workers, frontline workers, health, police, fire, but I include my staff in that too. We've had contingency plans and have moved through 3 scenarios, but are now in lockdown. And the reason we're in lockdown is the increasing number of breaches of emergency powers. Chief Minister, you mentioned last week that 99% of the people are following the rules. Sadly, we have to deal with the 1% that are irresponsible and selfish. And they put at risk not only our community, but the police, the courts, the escort staff from Noonan's and my staff. We've reconfigured the jail to have an isolation wing, and this includes people who have tested positive and suspected positive too, and showing symptoms. Within our prison, we have a number of staff and prisoners who are over 70 and have underlying health problems. In the UK prisons, staff and prisoners have died. We do have the advantage of single cells, and on the isolation wing, we asked for volunteers, and the response was immediate by my staff. And seeing them shoulder to shoulder with the magnificent healthcare staff, getting through that wing has been brilliant. Probation also need a mention. They have, working with the Constabulary and Health and Social Care, opened a homeless facility in less than 10 days. And this is a vulnerable group that you really don't want wandering around the community or sofa surfing and moving around. But some of the prisoners are doing their bit too, hemming scrub trousers, assembling visors. We, from the prison kitchen in the last year, have prepared 1,500 meals for the food bank. So I'm very proud of my staff. I was pleased when the Chief Constable mentioned them last week, but they're turning up day after day, new shift patterns at a moment's notice. I believe that adversity brings out the best in people, and because of the great people I work with, I know that we'll get through this. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, Bob, for the update, and please can you pass on my thanks to all of your colleagues in the prison and the probation services who are doing such an important job throughout these trying times. Now, I'd like to use the rest of this briefing to look ahead. I know you have heard far too often how the times we are living in are unprecedented. Every day we are all stepping into the unknown. I maybe haven't thanked you enough for your perseverance and your patience. I know that this has not been easy, but together we have come a long way. It's your actions that have got us into this position that we are in today. Throughout this pandemic, I've tried to share with you as much information as possible and as soon as possible. Now, we've not got it right every time, I know that. This stuff is tough. But importantly, as I said last week, because of your actions, we have now had an opportunity to think about the future, and I want to give you more details about that. Later this week, we will be publishing a document about our approach to the next steps in dealing with the pandemic. It will describe how we make decisions, what advice we look at, and how we will approach the future. As I've said since the start of this process, it is important we keep you informed, and this document will allow you to see clearly our potential next steps. What it will not have is dates. It would be irresponsible of me to put dates into the plan. Decisions we take will be based on the data we gather at each stage. If the data and the clinical advice that we receive allows us to do more, then we might do more. But if that advice tells us that we are seeing a resurgence in the spread of the virus, then we will not take any further measures that might worsen it. As the Health and Social Care Minister has said on a number of occasions, our approach has to be one of incremental, carefully considered small steps, gradual, managed and clinically led. What you will see in the paper is full transparency over our processes. It will be our best guess at this time as to what the journey ahead of us might look like. The big question, to which I do not have an answer, is where that journey will take us. As the New Zealand Prime Minister, the United Kingdom Foreign Secretary and the Scottish First Minister have all said in recent days, we all need to start preparing for a new normal. This is something we have talked about at this lectern on a number of occasions. The things that will be the real game changers are not yet with us. A vaccine still seems to be a long way off. New, more effective treatments for the virus are being worked on. Antibody testing is still massively unreliable. Despite positive comments in the media, none have received appropriate medical certification. Until there is a major breakthrough on any of these things, we have to learn to live with the new normal. Now, what does this mean? It does mean that social distancing will remain important for a long time to come. Many of us have tried to find new ways of working and living. I cannot see this changing in the near future. So much of this is new. Those who follow the international news will know that the science is changing every day. I know it may seem that the facts are changing around us. This is partly true. Globally, our understanding of the virus and its behaviours is developing all the time. Some of the most basic issues relating to the virus are still being debated by the world's leading scientists. Do people who have the virus retain long-term immunity? We still don't know. One debate that has caused a great deal of emotion is masks. Before we go to questions, I wanted to share our latest thinking. the Health and Social Care Minister has replied to questions on masks here on a number of occasions. The global expert advice on the benefits of masks has been constantly evolving. There is still no global consensus. Much of the coverage in the media, and especially the debate on social media, has been complicated by the range of masks discussed. From the advanced masks that are used by medical professionals in direct contact with known COVID cases, to a simple bandana or other homemade masks. The Council of Ministers has been following this debate carefully, and this morning considered a paper prepared by our public health experts and agreed by our clinical leadership team. We asked them to produce advice for the use of masks on the Isle of Man. As we have said before, we wanted advice specific to our Manx situation so that we could make Manx decisions. We do not have some of the pressures of some large developed countries. We do not have the mass public transport systems of some. We do not have the densities of population of others. We will be publishing detailed guidance shortly, but I would like to give you some headlines now. Firstly, it is important to emphasise that with this updated guidance, the wearing of masks remains a matter of personal choice. We are not mandating the use of masks within our community. Secondly, social distancing, hand washing and other hygiene measures continue to be the best steps we can all take. Thirdly, there is insufficient scientific evidence that masks are effective in protecting the wearer. There is some limited scientific evidence that where social distancing is impossible, the wearing of masks by someone who has slight or no symptoms may protect others. Our advice to employers has always been that they need to do everything they can to enable social distancing in the workplace in order to provide a safe environment for the employees. If there are times or places where social distancing is absolutely impossible, then they should act reasonably to provide equipment to keep people safe. This is what government will be doing as a responsible employer. We have taken a range of steps to make our workplace as safe as possible. But where colleagues are not able to maintain social distancing while performing their role, we will be making masks available to them. I should make clear that the masks that we will be making available to staff will not be high-end medical grade masks. Clinical masks will continue to be allocated to our health and social care colleagues as their protocols dictate that this should be the case. I know that there will be questions about schools. Discussions continue between the Department of Education, Sport and Culture and our teachers with regards to what will be needed for a possible return of pupils in the future. I know that the question of protective equipment has featured in discussions. The Minister will be coming to the press briefing later this week and I'm sure can address your questions in detail then. I will now take questions and first we have Mr Moulton from MTTV. Paul.
Thank you, Mr Quayle. I'd like to speak to Governor Bob, if I may, because obviously you don't have him often. In fact, the first time you've been with us, Bob. This business, when I spoke to the Chief Constable, he could not do testing on anybody in custody for the virus. So obviously, once they get to you, I presume you do test. Is that a voluntary, mandatory thing? And do you test everyone in the prison all the time so you know where you're up to?
No, we're not testing routinely unless they're symptomatic. Some of the offenders have had to go into hospital and will be tested there. Others have been in isolation and tested, and so we've got a flavour of what there is. But in truth, Paul, the isolation wing is a complete lockdown, and they're with us a relatively short period of time. These sentences are 30 days, which with half remission means they're with us around 14 days, which is the isolation period. So we're already discharging some of those people back into the community.
Okay. You having a lockdown at the moment, does that mean no visitors and the place is completely shut down, literally like that? Can you just give us more information, please?
Yeah, we've done it in stages. Originally, we were trying to get social distancing in visits by only having half the number of visits, but it was quite clear that, and I have to say, this, offenders aren't generally known for following rules. And so as a consequence, in the end, we've had to sort of say no visitors. What we are doing is putting in a video link and also looking at in-cell telephony. So it is lockdown. The prisoners do get out to get some exercise, on the exercise yard, or make a telephone call, or have a shower, but that's it.
And is that indefinitely, by the way?
Well, we've had 3 scenarios, and it will depend on staffing and also whether we've got anyone testing positive too, because introducing that into our environment has upped the stakes. So we will just reverse the scenarios at some stage.
Thanks, Bob.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. We move on to Josh from ITV. Josh.
Thank you, Chief Minister. You've mentioned in the opening speech about the start of what seems like is an exit strategy. Does it now feel like we've hit that peak in the curve? The lack of new cases and the easing of restrictions certainly suggests that may be the case. And is this document that's coming out later in the week going to show not necessarily dates, but some sort of timeline up until borders reopening, perhaps?
Well, it's not going to show a timeline, Joshua. What it will hopefully show is stages. I've said this is all about taking small steps, and then you review the data to see what's happened. The numerous data that we collect from our medics, from our telephone lines, from the police, etc., and then that will allow us, once we feel it's safe to do so, to take the next step. So it will be giving details of what those stages will be, but we can't, as I said in my speech, Josh, we can't give a time frame at this moment in time. Yes, I am pleased that I think we've had with only one, but we can't be complacent. We are working hard to ensure that we do as much testing as possible. For example, everyone going into the hospital is now tested, irrespective of whether they're showing any signs of having COVID or it's another issue. And so far, we've had good results in the last few days, but we can't get carried away. We've got to see how this next step, where we've allowed people from the construction sector to go back to work, how that operates, what the data states on that in a week or so's time, and then we can review the next step. So hopefully that's answered your question, Josh.
Thank you. And my second question, you stated previously that the reopening of borders is largely reliant on how things are looking in the UK. Can you give a bit of insight into what sort of factors you're looking at in the UK to reopen the borders? And will it be until they flatten their curve, for example?
Well, obviously it'll be on the best medical advice, but I think the last stage will be opening our borders. There are a number of things we can do on the island, dependent on the number of cases, and if the data carries on along the way it's going at this moment in time, then we will be able to make those next steps. But the very last one will be opening our borders with the UK. I think they're currently on 5,000 cases a day, new cases a day. And that's going to be the key decider. But I think that's going to be a considerable time away, Josh.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Right, Chris Kay from Energy FM. Chris.
Good afternoon, Chief Minister. With just the one confirmed case since the 22nd of April, it seems the contact tracing has been thoroughly effective. How confident are you that you've isolated where the virus is and has been on the island, and how do you carry out the testing as we move forward?
Well, obviously, you can't be totally confident in anything, Chris. You can't be complacent. You've got to carry on doing all your testing, making sure that we keep on doing our social distancing, our isolation, our hand washing, and all the other hygienic things we need to do to fight this illness. So that's first and foremost. But we're still getting calls in from the 111 hotline. Obviously, they've gone down from 800 to about 100 a day, but we're still testing from there. We're still testing everyone coming into the hospital. And if we have concerns with a nursing home, where maybe someone's showing signs of a cold, then we have gone in and tested the entire nursing home just to be on the safe side. So that's what we will be doing. So I think just because we've had 6 days of no cases or just the one, I don't think we can take anything for granted. As far as I'm concerned, it's business as usual with all our testing and our tracing. But I think it shows the hard work that our public health, especially in this instance, have done regarding the tracing of people, that they've done a very good job, that we can get into this position. But it will only take one breakdown of people breaking their social isolation who have the COVID-19 to start it up again. So we can't let our guard down on this one. And your next one, Chris.
Yes, vandals targeted a business in the west of the island after it announced it was reopening. Can you just confirm that no businesses will be allowed to reopen unless government gives it the green light that it is indeed safe to do so?
Well, we've made it clear that what type of businesses can open. Now, I think the business you're talking about voluntarily shut down 4 weeks ago and then decided to open, having followed the various rules and regulations. So I cannot say that each business gets told you can start up again. We put the data out on our website, which clearly shows what type of business can open, and then they can follow that. So I really don't want to talk about individual cases like this, but I'm disappointed to hear of damage done to property and that the police have had to be called in on that. Right, next we have Alex Bell from BBC. Mr. Bell.
Thank you, Chief Minister. Can I talk to the Health Minister, please?
Yeah, certainly. David?
Good afternoon, Alex.
Good afternoon. Hi. Just in regards to the Abbotswood case, are you able to confirm that today's deaths in the community have stemmed from that cluster, and indeed the ones on Friday, which at the time you weren't able to confirm?
Yeah, I can confirm that in both cases it was Abbotswood, rather tragically.
Thank you. To build on that, obviously it's a very sorry situation there. Unfortunately, for the families of everybody involved, the case is now spreading wider. I saw a couple of articles in the UK press about it over the weekend. What is the current situation, can you confirm, between the DHSC and the licence holder there? Has it changed?
The situation has not changed since I last updated it. The licence is currently suspended and DHSC is in the home assisting the licence holder in ensuring the running of that home. One thing I would like to take the opportunity, though, to make clear is I really would urge people to think twice before they post things on social media. I have seen posts over the weekend directed at Abbotswood staff and people involved with Abbotswood that, to be frank, I don't think are appropriate. And I really, really would urge people, to come together at this time and not be posting certain things on social media.
Thank you. And just to build on that point, is there a long-term plan in place now for residents who are currently under the care of Abbotswood?
So in terms of the long-term plan, as you know, there are several residents up in Newlands at the moment, because as I think I explained at the press briefing on Friday, we are doing deep cleaning of the building in sections. Those residents, once that's will be moved back into Abbotswood once that deep cleaning process is completed, and then another set of residents will be moved out and into Newlands for that area of the building to deep cleaned, and we will be cycling that as part of the process. But the intention is for the residents that are in Newlands to return to the home once that's complete.
And that's all residents will eventually return to the home, provided they're in.
That is certainly the plan.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. And can I pay tribute to the staff at Abbotswood who've continued to work and who are now coming back, the others who are coming back from their quarantine because they've obviously had the illness, COVID-19. Pay tribute to them, and also our staff that have volunteered from across the island to go in and help work and look after these vulnerable people. They've all done a really, really good job, and we should be really proud of all concerned with a really difficult issue. Right, next we have Jess Sward from Isle of Man newspapers. Jess.
Hello, Chief Minister. This question is for Governor McColm.
Okay, Bob.
Yeah.
Hi, could you confirm how many positive cases of coronavirus have been confirmed in prison amongst prisoners, but also amongst staff members?
Jess, I can't discuss staff members' medical, but we have had one confirmed prisoner. He actually came in with it. The other ones we've tested have been negative, but we are treating everyone who comes in new as if they've actually got the virus. So we're isolating them for 14 days, regardless of their length of sentence.
And so within that isolation wing, you said, are they all in single cells? Is that right?
All in single cells and spread about the wing. We had designated one of our smaller wings, but the increase in the numbers of receptions of people because of breaching the emergency powers, we've had to reconfigure this would normally take months, reconfigure all the wings. So one of our biggest wings now has the headroom should the courts see fit to send us some more, and we'll deal with what we have to deal with.
And are you able to confirm how many people are in that wing then who are...
Yes, we have 14 at the moment, but it turns over, Jess, because we can get receptions at any time and they will go on there. But we're also having discharges too. On Friday, we had 3 discharges and 2 of them we took to an address in Douglas rather than put them on public transport. So they've been with us, 13, 14 days, but we took them to an address because it's the responsible thing to do.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jess.
My other question is for the Chief Minister.
Okay, Jess.
So I believe some ministers have decided not to accept a pay rise. I'm just wondering, what other initiatives do you have in mind to show solidarity with the Manx public in terms of reducing government spending to kind of fit in with people who are feeling the financial implications of coronavirus?
Well, obviously, we've told all departments to look at ways that we can save money. Obviously, the Treasury will be looking at a plan going forward. We are losing a lot of money every month in our economy, as our island nation. And I think it's only when this is over that we'll know the full cost to the island. But I think it was responsible that all of the Council of Ministers, I'm sure all Tynwald members, decided not to take the increase to show solidarity. But we will obviously need to look at further measures as we go forward. And now I feel as we need to ensure that we save lives, we protect the health of the nation and the infrastructure of the NHS, and then in the future, when we have a clearer picture, then we take a further view. Thank you very much, Jess. Now we move on to Amanda Cashmore from Jeff the Mongoose. Amanda.
Thank you very much, Chief Minister. Our first question is for Governor McColm as well. Governor, could you give us some more details on the homeless shelter you mentioned previously? Where exactly is it located? Are you working with charities? And how many people is it helping? And how is it being staffed?
Right, it's being staffed by originally prison staff, resource staff, Noonans, probation staff and social workers. It's a hotel in the south of the island. I think today it's 7 residents today, but there's been a turnover. They're once again not always reliable people. They go missing, and we're not holding them in a custody unit. They're actually there voluntarily. It's been quite an interesting time, to say the least. But a lot of cross-departmental working has actually made this happen and happen very quickly. I mean, we opened the Community Rehabilitation Centre at Tremode House, the Bale Hostel, and that took us 3 months. Probation did this in 10 days. Geraldine Martin and her team were just marvellous. But so were the police, and so were health and social care. It just shows what you can do when you're up against it.
Thank you very much. And our second question is for Minister Ashford, if that's all right.
Okay. David.
Afternoon, Amanda.
Good afternoon, Minister. Previously, you announced that the new testing centre gave us the capacity to test 200 samples per day, but we don't seem to have been reaching that capacity. Could you let us know a bit more as to why that's not happening yet?
We haven't at the moment because we're still working on our testing strategy. As I think I've mentioned previously, we're looking at expanding around key workers and also looking at going potentially into care homes and those sort of environments. But that takes time to set up, and that's what we're in the process of doing now. Bear in mind, it is only now just coming up to a week that we've actually had our on-island testing. So though all those protocols are working up, the number of calls going through 111, as the Chief Minister and myself myself both said, have dropped away, and so that will give us more expanded capacity, but these things do take a week or so to work up, but we will be seeing that capacity getting used very shortly.
Do you have a goal sort of set time for when you'd like to reach that capacity?
Well, I think what's more important is we focus on the type of testing we're doing. I don't think the focus on the number of doing 200 tests a day is particularly helpful. I think what matters is we're doing testing in the right places. There's lots of things we could do that would increase our testing capacity, but the question is, are they the right things to do? And what we want to do is to focus on those areas that we really need to. We've already, within the testing now, included all hospital admissions. We're also testing different categories of DHSC staff as well. And so we are building it up stage by stage by stage.
Thank you very much.
Right, thank you very much, Amanda. And we now move on to Tim Glover from Manx Radio. Tim.
First am I. The first question's actually to the Health Minister. Sorry, Chief Minister.
OK, don't worry about it, Tim.
Afternoon, Tim.
Good afternoon, Minister. I just want to drill into the figures a little bit, if I may. 40 active cases, I think you stated in the earlier address. We've got 22 in hospitals, so there are 18 others in the community. So how many of those are Abbotswood related, and does that just leave us with a handful of cases that are not related to Abbotswood?
Well, we don't break it down in that way of separating out the Abbotswood in terms of the active cases, Tim. I may be able to give you more information around that next week, because we are looking to report recoveries in Abbotswood as well to give people a bit more information. But at the moment, we don't break the data down in that way. One of the things I would say is, I know that makes it sound absolutely wonderful, and the island's in a very good place. But as you and everyone else who knows me knows I am very, very cautious by nature. As the Chief Minister said, we've had one identified case in 6 days, but we need to still see that longer term trend before we can start feeling that there's things that can be done off the back of that. So while it is very, very encouraging and positive, the data at the moment, we really need to see what effect the measures, for instance, we introduced on Friday will have, because as I've said before, it can take 8 days after taking measures before you see the real impact, and then we need to go from there. So everything still needs to be done in stages, and people should not be getting relaxed about this and thinking this means that we don't have to continue doing what we're doing.
I get that. Just to follow up on that, it would appear, though, that we don't have many cases out in the community.
We don't. The community suppression and the contact tracing seems to have worked. But like I say, I'll still keep using the word seems to have until I see that long-term data trend set.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tim. Now we move on to Rob Pritchard from 3FM. Rob.
Good afternoon, Chief Minister. My first question is for Mr. McColm, please.
Okay.
Hi, Rob. Good afternoon.
Hi there. Good afternoon. I just wanted to touch on something you mentioned about staffing there. You mentioned that you have numerous staff who would be classed as in the more vulnerable age bracket. Some may have underlying health conditions. Bearing that in mind and all the problems that this pandemic's posed, specifically with regards to staffing, how is the prison operating now? What changes have you made to make sure, A, those staff are safe, and B, that operations can still run properly?
Those with underlying health problems won't work on the isolation wing. Some have self-isolated, some are taking longer off, and others are actually working from home. We've changed every shift pattern, Rob, in a day, because we're staffing in a completely different way. Keep using the word unprecedented, but the staff are working in teams. Every routine has changed. I've seen a lot in my time in the prison service, but this is actually quite amazing flexibility. We have enough staff to run the prison safely, and the well-being and safety of our staff and the prisoners is our absolute priority. Is that okay, Rob?
That's good. Yeah, thank you very much. My second question is for the Chief Minister, please.
Okay, Rob.
Just for a bit of clarity, the document that you say is going to be released later this week, you said obviously there's not going to be any dates could be subject to change. Once it is published, how regularly will this be updated and published for the public? Because I imagine that'll be quite an important resource to keep people up to speed going forward.
Yeah, obviously we'll be updating our website all the time. We never stop. That's updated on a regular basis. But if we feel the need to put another one out, say we're making another move into another stage and we need to have a discussion with the whole of the public, then that's something we'll obviously do. You know, we've not set any guidelines or rules. If it feels right that we need to get the information out, then of course we will. This is, you know, I've committed all the time to have full and frank negotiations with all of the people of the Isle of Man. This is one of our many tools that we use, along with speaking to yourselves every day. Thank you. Right, now today we are joined by Simon Richardson from Business 365. So welcome, Simon, and open to any questions. 2 questions, yeah.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Chief Minister. And thanks to your tech team, Ashlyn and Justin, for enabling Business 365 to be part of this process. I have a couple of questions, if I may. I would like to address them to the Health Minister, if possible, please.
Okay, certainly.
Good afternoon, Simon.
Good afternoon. Minister, are there any plans in place for the Isle of Man to share the coronavirus app that's currently being developed in the UK, or even to team up maybe with the private sector and develop one specifically for the island?
We are looking at apps, but one of the issues with apps is the only way they're effective is if you get a large proportion of the population using them. So one of the things we've got to be very cautious about is that fact. So an example of that is Singapore, where Singapore came out with an app. Singapore is normally very good as a society for following government advice, and I believe the uptake of their app was about 16%. So it was far too low to actually be able to build any data picture. So we are looking at various apps, but we do have to remember there's a limitation there as well. For them to be able to collect the data that would actually be able to help us, we need to have roughly around at least 45 to 50% of the population using it. And as far as I'm aware, no app has yet achieved that.
Thank you. My second question, just for clarity, given the tragic death toll at the Abbotswood nursing home, could you confirm if critically ill patients at the home have had the same access to ventilators as patients being treated for the virus at Nobles Hospital?
Yet people are not treated in any way differently medically. They receive wherever they may be they in a care home, be they in their own flat, be they out in the wider community. They are all treated exactly the same. If they require a hospital admission, they will be admitted and they will receive treatment and access to that treatment on an equal basis. We don't differentiate between where someone is. We focus on what treatment they actually require.
Thank you.
So it was a long way of saying yes, basically, Simon.
Thanks very much.
Okay, right. I think Mr. Moulton would like to ask a question, then Mr. Glover, and then Amanda. And then on the newspapers.
Chief Minister, the UK looked as it might be going down this 14-day quarantine route for returnees from overseas. Will there be a double jeopardy here for Isle of Man people? Will they have to do 14 days in the UK and then 14 days here?
I wouldn't have thought so, because we say if you come over to the Isle of Man as a key worker to do, say, 7 days, you don't have to stay here 14 days. You can go straight back to the UK after that period of time. So obviously, if the UK follow the Isle of Man lead on isolating, quarantining people who come into the UK, we'll have to look at their, what they're doing. But no, you would still have to be isolated on the Isle of Man. But I think that's a little while off yet. But when we see, any details from them, we will of course look into it. I think I had Tim next, and then Amanda.
Yeah, this is to the prison governor, because we were contacted a few weeks ago by employees at the prison who were concerned about the lack of PPE equipment. Have those concerns been addressed, Bob? And I would imagine it's pretty unrealistic in a prison environment for much social distancing between staff and prisoners.
It's we're fine for PPE. We've been on it from day one. I don't think everyone was aware of what we had, and we also have nursing staff who have trained our staff in the use of PPE. So I'm totally satisfied that both prison, probation, and we trained some Noonan staff, the escorts too, have the right equipment, and it will be used commensurate to the risk that is presented by the individuals. So I'm a lot more comfortable. Initially, we were running around like everybody else.
Thanks very much, Bob. Amanda, next.
Thank you very much. And I also have another question for the Governor, if that's okay. I actually want to touch on mental health. For the prisoners, obviously, there's quite a change in their day-to-day lives. They can't see their friends and family in visitation. Perhaps they're spending more time in their cells and they're kept separate from others. Are you seeing a change in mental health in prisoners, and are you putting things in place to sort of protect that?
Not significant changes, but there's no doubt isolation does actually affect you that way. Very early on, we went to the University College of Man and got activity packs for in-cell use, and so our education manager has issued those. In addition to that, we've opened up all the television channels, because normally you only get the ones if you're behaving properly. But at the moment, they're still getting out of their cells, but it's just in 2s and 3s. They have to socially isolate, but they can go on the exercise yard. But I think these things may become more of an issue the longer we stay in lockdown, just as we've got to get that balance right between actually making sure we're keeping them safe, but also their well-being. But monitoring it all the time, Amanda.
Thank you very much.
Okay, and finally, Jess.
Amanda bet me to it, so no questions from me now.
Okay, well, thank you all very much, and I'd like to end with some shout-outs. So thank you very much, Bob, for coming in today. First, a story of remarkable resilience and fighting spirit. 95-year-old Winnie Lockett was admitted to hospital on the 12th of April after suffering heart failure. She tested positive for COVID-19 when she was admitted. She was discharged just 4 days later as she was feeling much better and has now completed 14 days self-isolation at home with only doorstep deliveries of food and the odd wave from passers-by. There's clearly no stopping Winnie, who lived through the Second World War and has now seen off COVID-19. She will turn 96 on Saturday, the 2nd of May, and I would like to be the first to wish Winnie a very happy birthday. Second, I would like to give a shout out to a pair of first-year undergraduates who are providing a great service to Year 12 students who are thinking of going to university. Chess Warren and Caitlin Allenson set up the Manx Universe Facebook page, linking Isle of Man students with those thinking of studying in the United Kingdom and helping them understand more about the different universities and courses. It has more than 300 members already. Thank you very much. And last, but certainly not least, I would like to say a big thank you to the Isle of Man branch of the Samaritans. They always do incredible work that is doubly important during this uncertain times. They all are always available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and they can be contacted free on 116 123. So thank you all again for all that you've done so far. You continue to make a real difference. The Treasury Minister will be here tomorrow to update you on the economic situation and measures to support businesses and workers. I'm due back with you on Wednesday. Until then, please stay safe and make the right choices for you, your family and our island. Thank you very much.